The afternoon sun hung lazily over the quiet suburban street, warming the pale concrete and drawing out the faint scent of cut grass from nearby lawns. It was the kind of day that felt predictable, almost rehearsed, cars passing at steady intervals, distant chatter drifting from open windows, the soft rustle of leaves swaying in a mild breeze. Nothing about it hinted at the moment that was about to fracture its calm. Margaret Ellis stepped out of the small neighborhood bank with careful, measured steps. The glass door closed gently behind her, and for a brief second, she paused at the top of the stairs, adjusting her grip on the worn leather purse tucked under her arm. It was old, older than some of the tellers inside, but she trusted it. It had been with her through decades of ordinary life, grocery runs, doctor visits, birthdays, quiet afternoons in the park. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from age. She adjusted her glasses with a soft sigh, blinking against the brightness. Inside the purse was her pension, cash she had counted twice at the counter, then once more before leaving. She always double-checked. You learned to be careful when you lived alone. She took a step down, then another, her sensible shoes making soft tapping sounds against the concrete. Her breathing was steady, though a bit shallow, and she moved with the slow caution of someone who had learned that a simple misstep could mean days of pain. Still, there was something dignified in the way she carried herself, shoulders slightly hunched, but her chin held just high enough to show she hadn't given in to frailty entirely. Across the street, a dark sedan sat idling in a patch of shade. Its engine hummed quietly, blending into the background noise of the neighborhood. From the outside, it looked like any other parked car, unremarkable, forgettable. But inside, two men watched. The driver leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on Margaret as she began walking along the sidewalk. His fingers tapped an impatient rhythm against the steering wheel. He had been scanning people for the past 20 minutes, dismissing most with quick, practiced judgment. Too young, too alert, too many witnesses nearby. But she was different. She's alone, he muttered. The passenger followed his gaze, squinting slightly. Yeah, and slow. The driver gave a faint smirk. Perfect. Margaret adjusted her scarf as she walked, pulling it a little tighter around her neck even though the air wasn't cold. It was a habit, one she didn't think about anymore. Her thoughts were elsewhere, on the groceries she needed to buy, the pills she had to pick up from the pharmacy, and the small toy she planned to get for her great-grandson's birthday. He was turning 6. Such a bright boy. She smiled faintly at the thought. She didn't notice the car door opening behind her. The driver stepped out quietly, closing the door with a soft click. His movements were controlled, deliberate. He glanced once up and down the street. A couple of pedestrians lingered in the distance, but no one close enough to intervene. The moment felt right. He started walking. Margaret continued forward, unaware. Her purse rested against her side, her hand loosely gripping the strap. She paused briefly to let a car pass at the corner, then resumed her pace. Hey, lady. The voice cut through the air sharply. Margaret turned, startled, her brows knitting together in confusion. She hadn't expected anyone to address her so suddenly. Before she could fully process what was happening, the man was already too close, standing directly in front of her, blocking her path. Yes, she said softly, her voice uncertain. Then she saw it. The gun. It appeared almost casually in his hand, but its presence changed everything in an instant. Small, dark, and unwavering, it pointed straight at her chest. For a moment, her mind refused to understand what she was seeing. It felt unreal, like something from a television show, not her quiet afternoon. Her breath caught. Give me the purse, the man said, his tone low, controlled, but edged with impatience. Margaret's fingers tightened instinctively around the strap. Please, there must be some mistake. There's no mistake, he snapped. The purse. Now. Her heart began to pound, each beat louder than the last. She could hear it in her ears, drowning out the distant sounds of traffic. Her knees felt weak, unsteady beneath her. It's just my pension, she whispered, her voice trembling. I need it, please. The man's expression hardened. He took a step closer, the gun lifting slightly as if to emphasize his point. I said now. The sudden shout echoed, sharp and jarring. A couple across the street turned their heads. Someone further down slowed their pace. But no one came closer. No one intervened. Fear held them all at a distance. Margaret's vision blurred with tears. Her hands shook uncontrollably now, her strength draining away under the weight of the moment. She had lived through so much, loss, hardship, years of quiet endurance, but nothing had prepared her for this kind of helplessness. Slowly, reluctantly, she extended the purse toward him. The man snatched it from her grasp with a rough jerk, the force causing her to lose her balance. She stumbled backward, her foot catching awkwardly against the uneven pavement. For a terrifying second, it felt like she might fall. She flailed slightly, managing to steady herself just enough to avoid hitting the ground, but the effort left her breathless and shaken. "Let's go," another voice hissed. The passenger had appeared, his eyes darting nervously around. He grabbed the driver's arm, pulling him back toward the car. They moved quickly, urgency replacing their earlier calm. The car doors slammed, the engine revved, and within seconds, the sedan sped off, tires screeching as it disappeared down the street. Silence followed. Not complete silence, but the kind that felt heavy, unnatural. The world seemed to hesitate, as if unsure how to continue after what had just happened. Margaret stood frozen for a moment, her hands still slightly outstretched where the purse had been. Then, slowly, they fell to her sides. "It's gone," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Her chest tightened painfully, and she took a shaky breath, trying to steady herself. The strength seemed to drain from her legs all at once. She turned, almost blindly, and made her way to a nearby bench. Lowering herself onto it with difficulty, she clasped her hands together tightly in her lap. They wouldn't stop shaking. "Oh God," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "What am I going to do?" People passed by now, some slowing, some glancing, a few offering hesitant looks of sympathy, but still, no one approached. The moment had already begun to fade for them, becoming just another unfortunate incident in a world full of them. But not for Margaret. For her, it was everything. Across the street, however, something had shifted. Outside a small roadside diner, a group of bikers sat at a long table, half-finished meals in front of them. The laughter that had once filled their corner had vanished, replaced by a heavy, simmering silence. They had seen everything. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a graying beard, slowly set down his coffee cup. His eyes remained fixed on the direction the car had gone, his jaw tightening with each passing second. "You see that?" he said quietly. Another man nodded, his expression darkening. "Yeah, I saw." The older biker exhaled through his nose, a controlled, steady breath. Then he pushed his chair back and stood. "Not today," he said. The sedan surged forward, its engine whining as the driver pressed harder on the accelerator than necessary. The quiet neighborhood blurred behind them, sidewalks and storefronts melting into streaks of gray and beige. For a moment, everything felt under control again, like the chaos they had just created was already fading into the past. The driver leaned back slightly, a crooked grin spreading across his face as adrenaline coursed through him. "Too easy," he muttered, glancing at the rearview mirror more out of habit than concern. "Did you see her? She could barely stand." The passenger let out a short, breathy laugh, still riding the rush. He yanked the purse open, his fingers moving greedily through its contents. "Old people shouldn't carry cash like that," he said. "They're just asking for it." He pulled out a thick bundle of bills, his eyes lighting up. "Look at this, not bad for 5 minutes' work." But even as he spoke, something began to shift in the air, something subtle at first, almost unnoticeable beneath the hum of the car. A sound, low, distant, a vibration more than a noise. The passenger paused, his hand still inside the purse. "You hear that?" "Hear what?" The driver replied, distracted, eyes flicking between the road and the mirror. "That rumbling." The driver frowned slightly, tilting his head as if that might help him catch it. At first, there was nothing. Just the usual sounds, tires on asphalt, the faint rush of wind. Then it came again. Stronger this time. A deep, rolling thunder that didn't belong to the ordinary rhythm of the street. The driver's grip on the wheel tightened. "What the hell is that?" The passenger turned in his seat, craning his neck to look through the rear window. And then he saw them. His expression changed instantly, confidence draining from his face, replaced by something sharper, colder. We got a problem." The driver's pulse quickened. "What kind of problem?" "Bikes," the passenger said slowly. 5 of them, maybe more." The driver glanced at the mirror again, this time focusing. At first, they were just shapes, dark figures in the distance. But they were closing in. Fast. The rumble grew louder, filling the air with a raw, mechanical roar that sent a strange tension crawling up his spine. These weren't casual riders out for a cruise. The way they moved, tight formation, deliberate speed, it meant something. "They're gaining on us," the passenger said, his voice no longer casual. "Relax," the driver snapped, though his tone lacked conviction. "They're just passing through." But even as he said it, he pressed harder on the gas. The engine responded with a strained growl, the car lurching forward as they sped down the road. A traffic light ahead flickered yellow. Go through it, the passenger urged. I know. The driver accelerated, barely making it through before the light turned red. For a brief second, he thought they might have lost them. Then the roar came again, closer now. Too close. They didn't stop, the passenger said, turning back again, panic beginning to edge into his voice. They ran the light. The driver swore under his breath. Why are they still behind us? The answer came to him a moment later, heavy and undeniable. They saw us, he said quietly. The realization settled between them like a weight. They saw everything. The passenger swallowed hard, glancing down at the purse still in his lap. It suddenly didn't feel like a prize anymore. It felt like evidence. What do we do? He asked. The driver didn't answer right away. His eyes darted across the road ahead, searching for options, side streets, turns, anything that might give them an advantage. But the bikers were already adapting. Two of them split off, accelerating past the sedan with ease. Their engines roared as they surged ahead, cutting off any chance of a clean escape route. Another stayed directly behind them, close enough now that the driver could see the rider's silhouette clearly in the mirror, broad shoulders, steady posture, completely unfazed. They're boxing us in, the passenger said, his voice rising. Shut up, the driver snapped, though his own heart was pounding hard enough to make his hands tremble. One of the bikers pulled up alongside the driver's side window. The man turned his head slightly, his gaze hidden behind dark lenses, but there was no mistaking the intensity of it. He wasn't just riding. He was watching. The driver's breath hitched. This is bad. Really bad, the passenger agreed. Up ahead, the two bikers who had surged forward suddenly slowed, their movements precise and controlled. They spread out just enough to block the lane without causing a collision. Brake, the passenger shouted. The driver hesitated for a split second, just long enough for panic to spike. Brake, he slammed his foot down. The tires screeched violently against the asphalt, the car jerking as it came to an abrupt stop just short of the bikes ahead. The sudden silence after the engine's strain felt deafening. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then everything happened at once. Doors opened. Engines idled. Boots hit the pavement. The bikers dismounted with a calm efficiency that made the situation feel even more controlled, more inevitable. The driver's hands shook as he reached instinctively for the door lock, pressing it down. Too late. The handle was already being pulled. The door swung open with a sharp motion, and there he was. The older biker. Up close, he was even more imposing, broad-shouldered, weathered face, gray in his beard, eyes steady and unflinching. There was no rush in his movements, no wasted energy. Just quiet authority. Out, he said. The driver blinked, his mind scrambling. I don't know what this is about. Out, the man repeated, his voice firmer now. Something in his tone made it clear, this wasn't a negotiation. The driver slowly raised his hands, his body stiff as he shifted out of the seat. The moment his feet touched the ground, he felt the full weight of the situation crash down on him. On the other side, the passenger tried to act. He grabbed the purse and shoved the door open, attempting to bolt, but he barely made it a step before two bikers were on him. They moved fast. One grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back, while the other pushed him forward against the hood of the car. The purse slipped from his grasp, landing with a dull thud. Let me go, he shouted, struggling. Not happening, one of them said calmly, tightening his grip. Please, take the money, the passenger blurted out, panic fully taking over. It's not even ours. Just take it. The older biker, Hank, stepped forward, bending slightly to pick up the purse. He held it for a moment, weighing it in his hand, then looked at the passenger. Exactly, he said. It's not. The passenger's resistance faltered. His shoulders slumped as the reality of the situation set in. In the distance, faint at first but growing louder, came the sound of sirens. Someone had called the police. Hank glanced briefly in that direction, then back at the two men in front of him. There was no anger in his expression, just a firm, unshakable certainty. You picked the wrong person today, he said. The driver swallowed hard, unable to meet his gaze. Within minutes, the flashing lights appeared at the end of the road, cutting through the tension with sharp bursts of red and blue. The officers stepped out quickly, taking in the scene, the stopped car, the restrained suspects, the line of bikers standing calmly nearby. Hank didn't say much as they approached. He simply handed over the purse, gave a brief explanation, and stepped back. The control shifted just as smoothly as it had been taken. But the message lingered. As the suspects were placed in handcuffs and led away, the bikers returned to their machines one by one. Engines roared back to life, filling the air with that same thunderous sound, but now, it felt different. Not threatening. Final. Hank put on his helmet, pausing for just a second before starting his bike. Then, without another word, they rode off, leaving behind an empty road, a stopped car, and the quiet aftermath of something that had been set right.